Hello everyone! Happy equinox! It's spring equinox if you're in the northern hemisphere and fall equinox if you're in the southern hemisphere. Either way, happy equinox! Today is March 20th, 2019, and I am here to bring you Daily Space! I am not Dr. Pamela Gay. I am Annie Wilson, so yeah! Let's do our normal Wednesday Daily Space as soon as I find the things. So today I think I have like 3 stories and an update. And I also have a new count on number of toilets been, destroyed in space. So let's start as soon as I get all my stuff up here. So there's only 2 launches between now and next Wednesday. I know, that's kind of a bummer. We'll only be streaming one of them, and the one that we will be streaming is for the Italian Space Agency, whose satellite is going to be launched by Arianespace. So this is what the satellite looks like. It is PRISMA, and it is an Earth observation satellite that will go up to SSO, that's Sun Synchronous Orbit. And PRISMA stands for, oh my, I'm going to copy paste this into chat because my Italian's really rusty. But it looks like Precursor Interspectral Mission Applicative Mission from the very little Italian I know. But I posted what the acronym stands for in chat. If you know more Italian than me, congratulations. So, I do know that it is an innovative electro-optical instrumentation that combines a hyperspectral sensor with a medium-resolution panchromatic camera. Sometimes I wonder if they make these words up. It will be used for environmental monitoring, resource management, identification and classification of crops, and efforts to limit pollution. So that's cool. The main areas of expected benefits of the hyperspectral data are the following: forest analysis, it's forest disturbance, forest fires, forest classification, biomass analysis. Not all forests are made of the same trees. Younger forests have different kinds and types of trees versus older forests. Plus, it's important to see, if any illegal logging is happening, etc., etc. Precision agriculture. That's crop mapping, rotation, stress analysis, and fertilization. Because yes, these things are important. It'll also look at inland and coastal waters, mostly water quality, chlorophyll monitoring, algae bloom, etc., etc., etc. It'll also be used for climate change and environmental research, and raw material exploration and mining, including soil degradation and soil properties. So, yeah, a lot of cool stuff going on with this Earth observation satellite. And here is a picture of it. The first half is just the satellite in the payload fairing. And the second half of it is it launched on top of a Soyuz? I think it's a Soyuz. And I've already forgotten when it launches. Let me check that real quick. This is one that has slipped a couple times, so I've lost track of it. So this will launch, let me pull up UTC. This will launch March 22nd at 1:50 in the morning UTC. For those on the East Coast, that's 9:50 p.m. on March 21st, which is tomorrow. And that's 6:50 p.m. on the West Coast. So, a launch at a pretty decent hour. Squish Chin says, that looks like a Vega, not a Soyuz. You are correct. It is indeed a Vega. You get all the internet points for today. Thank you. Thank you very much, because y'all are the geeks about this. I'm still learning and fumbling as I go along. So, yeah, so that's the launch that's tomorrow. And the other launch that happens later this week, which we will not stream, is one for China's OneSpace. And it is set to launch March 25th. No time. In fact, Rocket Launch Live does not even have a launch pad set up for it. As usual with Chinese launches, there's not going to be a live stream. The cool thing about this launch, though, is that OneSpace is a private company in China that is doing rocket launches. So we'll talk about them in a second. I want to talk about this satellite first. So this is, let me pull my notes back up. This is, oh my, I'm probably going to pronounce or mispronounce this, and I apologize. Ling Qi 1 Bravo. This is part of a demonstration for Zero G Labs Magpie Earth Observation Constellation. 1 Alpha was launched earlier this year on a Long March rocket, and there's been no launch date set for 1 Charlie. So they're going out of this constellation. They're initially putting up just 3 essentially demonstration satellites. This entire Magpie constellation, the first stage is going to have 132 satellites, each capturing optical data. Resolution is said to be better than 4 meters. I really don't know what that means. But with all 132, data could be collected for the entire globe every 12 hours, including checking on so-called hotspots every 30 minutes. The long-term goal is 378 satellites, where they can then change that hotspot check time, refresh time to 10 minutes. So that's pretty neat. That could be useful with things like forest fires, where forest fires and flooding can change fast enough to where it's important to know what the heck is happening. So, a little more about these satellites. This is a very, very small satellite. This is 6 CubeSats in a 2x3 configuration. So that's 2 wide and 3 long. And all of the Magpie constellation satellites are supposed to be like this. And yeah, you can see the solar panels. So I forget which kind of orbit this particular satellite is going to go into. It's probably sun synchronous or low Earth orbit. So it's a little hard sometimes getting information on Chinese space stuff. So, but let's talk about the rocket it's going up on and OneSpace a little bit. So this is Oscar Sierra Mike 1. So OSM1. I don't remember what the M stands for. OS stands for open space. It's OneSpace. Don't start, Puck. OneSpace and whole concept is to do late launches, so payloads to low Earth orbit and sun synchronous orbit, and their target customer base is micro nano satellites. So that's satellites up to 100 kilograms or 52-liter bottles. So relatively small satellites. So CubeSats are a perfect fit for, this kind of launch. It'll be a solid fuel rocket, and I know the MS-4 will have I think 4 boosters on it, in addition to the single stick configuration. So OneSpace is indeed China, one of the private companies in China. This will be the first real payload that will be launched on the OS-1 rocket. So that's pretty cool. Everybody's like, this is their maiden flight. Well, they've had test flights, and some places still consider this a test flight, but this is the first flight with a real payload. So hopefully it'll all go well. So I see a couple questions about this. Squishchin asks, so there will be 6 of these on a single launch and they'll form a satellite constellation? No. One satellite consists of the 6 CubeSats. So it's literally like, I don't have enough Legos handy, but it's literally 2, like 3 rows of 2. So 2, 2, 2 is how they've decided to arrange those 6 CubeSats. Another way that you can do a 6 CubeSat satellite is just line all 6 CubeSats up in a row and launch them that way. So, Squish Chin also asks, so they're like the Chinese version of Rocket Lab. Not quite. Rocket Lab uses electricity to launch their rockets. This is a solid fuel, which is stable and good for storing rockets and launching them within short notice. Rocket Lab has a whole lot of other stuff going on. But yeah, if you're thinking of it as small rocket companies, yeah, they're comparable in that way, but that's pretty much where it ends, in my opinion. That's all the questions I see for that. All right, so those are the launches that are happening this week. So now on to kind of space vehicle related news. Oh, Noel's correcting me. It's the electricity is what powers the fuel pumps. It's not the fuel itself. Thank you. I will probably always screw that up, but yes. All I remember with Rocket Lab is that electricity is involved somehow, and that's not the normal thing. So anyway, we'll talk about that more in a minute. Here is an image of a potential lunar rover that is made by Toyota. Well, hopefully will be made by Toyota. So JAXA, it's the Japanese, essentially government space agency, I forget what it stands for, my apologies, and Toyota have teamed up and come up with this, I don't want to say prototype, but essentially a plan for a lunar rover. So this will potentially be a thing in 2029, so that's like 10 years from now. I really hope it happens. This is why it's cool. This is a crewed rover with a pressurized cabin, meaning they don't need to wear, spacesuits essentially while they're in the cabin. It has a normal crew of 2. It can carry up to 4 in an emergency. So this will be 6 meters long, 5.2 meters wide, and 3.8 meters high. And Americans, I'm sorry, there's nothing really good to translate that to. Just think of a meter as about the same length as a yard, and that'll get you in the ballpark. So will be powered by fuel cells with a range of 10,000 kilometers, which is huge, especially on the moon. So for comparison, the moon rovers that a good number of us are familiar with would be the Apollo mission rovers. So those were unpressurized, had a max crew of 2, ran off of batteries, and they were 3.1 meters long, 2.3 meters wide, and 1.14 meters tall. So roughly half of the size of this proposed rover. And also the Apollo rover had 4 wheels, this one has 6. So yeah, that's super cool. I really think that'll be cool. I know there will be room inside of the cabin for the crew to get up and move around. So I'm not sure if they're thinking of this as like a mobile living space or just, you know, go out, do some science, come back kind of thing. So, but it's cool, and I want this to be a thing. So hopefully it'll be a thing. All right. And now our science update. And this is not a new image. This is of Beresheet. So Beresheet has had another successful maneuver about a day ago now. Its new orbit will take it 405,000 kilometers away from the Earth. This is the last major maneuver needed to put Beresheet in an orbit where the moon can catch it. Space IL expects Beresheet to meet up with the moon on April 4th, with landing occurring on April 11th. So April 4th is about 2 weeks from now. So yay, go Beresheet. So far, so good. All right, so that's all the news and the updates. So let's swap back over to this view, and I will scroll up through chat and look for your questions. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask me at me to make them easier to see. Otherwise, I might not see it at all. So all the way up. Okay. Give me a second. Very weird and proud. What does electricity launch a rocket? Squishchin said the Electron rocket Rutherford engines have electric turbopumps. Again, I don't really understand how the Electron rocket works. I just know it works differently, from other rockets, and it's called the Electron. Paranor asks about the Toyota lunar rover. So will it be used for driving down the streets of all the pollution-filled cities as well? I have no idea. They probably will test it out here on Earth. They almost have to. Yeah. Paranor clarifies my meter versus yards. 1 meter is 1.09 yards, so close, but in the long run, problems come up with that. String Terry asks, doesn't Tesla come with biohazard mode, at least models S and X? I have no idea what that means. String Terry, picture does not reveal steering, or yeah, I have no details on the steering. These are just essentially concept art. The final product might not look like it at all. It might look entirely different, but still be a big kind of boxy space on 6 wheels that astronauts and cosmonauts and anybody else on the moon can get into this vehicle and not have to wear spacesuits. So that's pretty cool. Squishchin asks about Beresheet. So after the next pass, it will be going to the moon. Yes, essentially. It is now, it will be, not right now, but it will be far enough out that when the moon comes around, because Beresheet's orbiting the Earth and the moon is orbiting the Earth, but this will put it in a path where the orbits kind of match, and then the moon's gravity will capture Beresheet and it will be removed from Earth's gravity. That's my understanding of it. But yeah, within a couple weeks, it should be captured by the moon's gravity, which is pretty cool. Larry Weird and Proud asks, how is Dr. Pamela's eyeball? It's doing better. As far as I know, it's doing better. I normally do daily space on Wednesdays anyways, so this is a normal thing for us. Squishchin says, yards and inches should be done away with. Meters are superior. I agree that, you know, we should all be using metric because that's what most of the world uses now, but I can't force everybody to use metric. So what I do when I stream, yes, Tinker, I know, I hear you. I know. You'd rather use the metric system too. What I do is I try to stick with metric units, and because kilogram or a liter of water weighs a kilogram. And for whatever reason in America, we sell our soda in 2-liter bottles. That is how I'm essentially translating weight for people that aren't really familiar with how heavy a kilogram feels. Meters are a little trickier because I haven't found anything that's accurate enough other than yards. So, yeah. All right, Tinker, have some Cheerios. There's no doggy cam on this setup, but I'm tossing doggy cam. String Theory says, I haven't heard Hebrew all that much. I actually asked Ambius, who is part of our community and pops up in our Discord, about the pronunciation because I couldn't find a really good pronunciation of Beresheet, and it is... My pronunciation is probably really close, but probably also not entirely accurate because I don't know any Hebrew. So, yeah, that's where I got the pronunciation for. And yes, Squish Chin, Imperial is indeed all over the place. Once I explained metric to a few adults in my life, they're like, oh my goodness, that's so much easier. I'm like, I know, right? You don't have to think about all this conversion. It's just all powers of 10, essentially. So, have some more Cheerios, dogs. So, any other questions? While you're thinking about questions to ask, I have continued my research into space toilets, and I am now up to 141 space toilets have burned up in our atmosphere. So that's 140 from Russia and 1 from China. I haven't gotten around to counting US space toilets yet, nor have I gotten around to counting any from any other country, but right now I'm sticking with countries that have had launched manned crewed spacecraft, and the Soyuz, or not the Soyuz, the Chinese craft that they use for crewed and uncrewed missions is based off of the Soyuz, so that's how I can very specifically say they've burned up at least 1 toilet in space. Very Weird and Proud asks, how many furlong per fortnight does your car go? 0. I don't have a car. So yeah, 141 toilets have been burned up in the atmosphere. I will get to how many American toilets have burned up in the atmosphere, but that should be kind of tricky. So I know there's at least 1 American toilet that's burned up in the atmosphere, and that's from Skylab. But I haven't done too much research into other American toilets that have burned up in the atmosphere. And now everybody's like, she's talking about toilets again. Great. Splish Chin asks, isn't India supposed to be putting crew into space soon in the next year or 2? Yes, that is part of their long-term goals, is definitely to put humans in space on their own accord. I know, Tink, have some more Cheerios. So India, that is part of India's plan. Larry Weird and Proud asks, did the space shuttle have a toilet? Yes, every space shuttle had a toilet. And I think we can add the 2. I think we can add the 2 that unfortunately did not quite come back down to Earth safely. So, oh, Challenger didn't re-enter, so that doesn't count. All right, so that makes 142. So 142, because the U.S. has, or no, 143, excuse me. So we're still ahead of China in that regard. That's kind of disturbing. because Skylab had a toilet and the other space shuttle had a toilet, but Challenger didn't re-enter. Does the Crew Dragon have a toilet? I think so. I think so. I haven't done enough research there. I think the Crew Dragon has a toilet. I'm curious to see if it's a Soyuz setup or if it's more of a setup like what we had on the shuttle and what we had on Skylab and what we have in the space station. So, EU needs to develop their own crewed launcher. I know, Tinker. Now you're just gonna cry because I've been tossing Cheerios at you. I'm not sure if that's on the EU's list of things to do. I know EU has a lot of things going on space-wise because it's not just one country, it's a whole bunch of countries working together. So I can see Arianespace continuing to launch things and possibly people for the EU. So part of me would bet that Arianespace would launch an EU crew over EU doing it themselves. So yeah, like if they were able to launch crew from French Guiana, which is where Arianespace launches, that would be nice. Yeah, I think Arianespace will be the ones to launch an EU crew. That's my prediction. I might be wrong. I feel like I need to have the dogs up just so you guys can see the dogs. So and it's not working. So, sorry about that. Anyways, oh, you use Arianespace and ESA interchangeably. Yeah, I try to be careful of that because Arianespace is indeed a private company and ESA is not. Arianespace does a lot of support for ESA, but they're not part of ESA. So anyways, so this is the last call for questions. While you all were doing that, I'm going to run down the usual station identification and try to ignore my dogs who are trying to bark and make a fuss. So, this is Daily Space. This is part of CosmoQuest, and every Sunday through... Yes, Tinker. Every Sunday through Friday, we stream at 1 p.m. Eastern. The UTC time varies as, you know, we still do daylight savings time. But 1 p.m. Eastern, Sunday through Friday, you can generally find us here at Twitch. If you ever miss a stream, we archive them on YouTube, so go watch them on YouTube. We are here because of you, so thank you for all of your donations, subscriptions, bits, merch purchases, everything. If you can't afford to do any of that, that's okay. Follows are free. Chatting with us is free. Joining our Discord and hanging out with us there is free. So yeah, please come hang out with us. Come learn with us. Rocket launches are streamed whenever they happen, if there's a stream that we know will happen. If you ever know of a stream for a live Chinese launch, track me down somewhere. Discord is probably your best place to check for me. Please let me know about any live streams for Chinese launches. I have to think now, what else? Oh, we work in collaboration with PSI, that's Planetary Space Institute in Tucson, Arizona, and Youngstown State University here in, it actually looks nice outside today, Youngstown, Ohio. And, oh, Planetary Science Institute. I always get it mixed up. So yeah, Planetary Science Institute and Youngstown State University. I'm going to do the last check for questions, and then we'll see where we go from there. Larry Weird and Proud says, I think someday SpaceX will send a Starship and grab Elon's Roadster and put it outside the headquarters. I vote to have it up on bricks since the tires popped. Oh my. Oh my. Squish Chin points out, like Boeing and others are technically making SLS, but I can call it a NASA rocket. Okay, that's fair. Something about tires and space. And so on and so forth. Squish Chin says, if I remember right, ESA was developing their own crewed vehicle, a space plane called Clipper, but that was canceled in the early 2000s. There are a lot of space programs that have been canceled since early 2000s, which is kind of unfortunate. So, with all of that, I think we're good. I'm going to awkwardly roll the credits, as always, and then we'll find someone to raid. So, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for all of your support. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye.